Welcome to the Running Refresh Podcast, where hot takes and debates on the sport of running are more than welcome in the studio and for the good of the sport.
Running Refresh is hosted by Logan Lummel and his refreshing guests.
Welcome to the Running Refresh Podcast. I'm joined by Eric Holt, 148 in the 800, 335 in the 15, 354 in the mile. Recently was the NACAC 1500 meter champion. We're talking North America, Central America, and the Caribbean, and placed fourth at the 1500 at the U.S. trials. So Eric, introduce yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you run in high school, college? Where are you running now?
Awesome. I'm very honored to be here. Interesting enough, not a lot of people know this, but I was actually born in Illinois. I was born in Hoffman Estates, Illinois, and I moved here in second grade in New York. And I've been living in Carmel, and now I'm kind of living around Carmel and Patterson. But I was born in Illinois, and I got into running in 8th grade. And, I remember I had some success, and I've always been kind of in and out of running. But every time I'm about to quit the sport, I make a huge breakthrough, and I'm like, oh, wow. And then I just keep on going. But I went to Carmel High School. I was a state champion my senior year in class of 2013. I went to Binghamton, which is a mid-major school. And I won 6 American East titles. I never made NCAAs, and I only made regionals once, so I didn't have the very fast times. And then, I had a little bit of resurgence in 2019. I broke 4 for the first time ever. And then in 2020, I got picked up by the club I represent now. That's was started by one of the rival schools in high school. So it all comes back to high school. So, one of this coach who started named Tommy saw what I was doing on Strava and recruited me. And, he was the first coach I've ever had in my life that immediately said, he set the bar high. He was like, one day you're going to run 352 for my team. And, I was like, really? And it was just so exciting. I never had a coach that set the bar that high. All the coaches I really had for most of my career, thought maybe I could have ran a 359, they never really had high hopes, but it's been really fun because, I graduated college in 2018, thought I was done with the sport and kind of lost passion, didn't really want to run anymore, wanted to get big and swole, as they say. And, I took many months off from the sport, and, it's really interesting because, I had such a resurgence, and, I'm running so fast, and I'm running these times that I thought I could run when I was 17, 18. And when I got to college, I was just trying to make NCAAs, maybe crack under the 4-minute barrier. And now it's we're talking about potentially, sub 350, the goals are just so high, and it's exciting. I mean, it's unbelievable. The love for the sport I have now, and the excitement I have, and the environment I have. I wish I had it when I was in college, and it's such a great experience. And, I'm so happy, I didn't give up this sport.
It's incredible to hear. And you're running for Empire Elite, right? Yeah. Empire Elite Track Club. Okay, so this podcast, I'm the host, Logan Lummel. I'm a future teacher and coach, current runner, ex-soccer player, trying to provide some unique perspectives on running for my guests and learn more about their passions outside of running as well. Today, we have an elite perspective from Eric Holt, the Bolt. Last week's episode, we had a draft, 5 best things in running, and believe it or not, I drafted Eric Holt as one of my 5 picks with Max and Cooper, so you can check that out. I post running-related content every Sunday at noon Central Time. Follow on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube at Running Refresh. So first, I'm going to interview Eric. Then we've got a fun segment, Fact or Myth, and then also Rapid Refresh at the end to wrap it up. A bunch of rapid-fire questions. Okay, so my first question. In a tweet, you said that you started track and field in 8th grade, but you thought you would be done in 1 season. Can you elaborate on that story?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, my dad and my family, like, none of them were really into track and field, or they never really seen it as a sport. My dad was a big football and basketball player. I'm a naturally a bigger guy. I weigh 175, and I was always a bigger guy. And I never really thought of to be, a runner or to even do the sport. I remember being in grade school and I told my teacher, they're like, if you could do anything in the world, Eric, what would it do? And I was like, oh, I'll be a professional athlete. And I envisioned myself as a baseball, football, basketball player, and I always had a feeling I would be a professional athlete, but I never thought like a track athlete. And in eighth grade, I remember I went out for the modified, which it means middle school, the middle school eighth grade basketball team. And I remember my dad and I would like practice laying up. I had to do like 10 layups in a row without missing, have like a mid-range shot. And I remember we went to tryouts in eighth grade. And I remember the modified coach told us like, hey, I know I've been to a lot of your birthday parties, but we're going to choose the best, like 15 guys here out of 60.
Oof.
And I remember that was kind of a red flag because he knew so many of the players. And I remember the tryout. I felt like I was the best player there. And I remember, spoiler, I didn't make the team. And I remember like one of the guys was like, oh man, you were killing it. You deserve to be on it. And I just remember feeling so depressed because like I wasn't playing basketball in eighth grade and I didn't know what to do. And at the same time, my dad was like, all right, like maybe we'll do a different sport in the meantime. And I remember I was like at home playing video games, not socializing, kind of depressed. And I joined the varsity track team. And this was in eighth grade. And I would have to take like a transit bus. Like after middle school ends, I took like a bus from the middle school to the high school, which was like some miles away. And, I just remember like running with like a lot of the seniors on the team, and the track team wasn't that great. And long story short, like I was like ended up being like one of the best guys as an eighth grader. And I didn't get that much attention from the head track coach, but I remember I ran a race. I beat the best senior at Carmel, and I ran 4:55 in the 1600. And I remember just like the feeling of joy myself, and it was just like everyone was like, "Who is this guy? He's only in eighth grade." And I remember thinking in my mind, I was like, wow, that was cool. Like, in most sports, there's like nepotism, they select you through all these tangibles. But like,
Yeah,
not only was
running.
I eighth grader, I was the best kid on this track team. And I remember thinking in my head, I was so stupid. I was like, oh, I'll break 4 minutes in the mile next year, win a few state titles, and then go back to like baseball or basketball or football. Like I didn't realize that, breaking 5 minutes is one thing, but getting better is like a whole nother thing. So after, a very successful, eighth grade, I decided to like keep on doing running and with this projection, and I did freshman year of cross country. And by my senior year I ran 4:07 in the 1600. I won a state championship, and I basically kept on running. And basically every time I wanted to quit the sport, I had a little bit of a breakthrough, some cool things happen. And it's like a butterfly effect. If I made that eighth grade modified basketball team, I probably wouldn't have ran. So
Yeah, it's
it's
weird
a
how that
weird
works.
life we live in.
Yeah. Okay. And I watched your 1500 at the NACAC championships. What was going through your head on that final lap when you kicked for the win?
I was going through a lot of pressure. This has been like a tough year because people thought, like, because I told a lot of people like I was done after 2020. And people want you to like get a job and start like a career. So I was under a lot of like pressure under my parents. And, after like 2021, it was such a great year because my PR in the 1500 was, I think, like 344 en route into a mile. And so I improved from that to 336 in one season. And like, I had a resurgence in running. I was loving it. Like I was PRing and everything, and not making the finals kind of stung. And I was like, I can't quit now. And in 2022, it was like a tough year. I wasn't PRing. Like I was struggling to get good again. And I remember after my very successful fourth place finish at the US meet, I talked to a few guys and they told me essentially that it was luck that I did as well as I did.
Oof.
Like they're like, you're lucky it was a slow tactical race. A lot of weird stuff happened, and someone like you got fourth. And so going into NICAC, I wanted to prove that it wasn't a fluke that I made that team. I wanted to prove that like I was deserving. So I was very nervous, and I remember I had to run on a treadmill every day because it was with humidity. It had a real feel of like 105, and so I was like living like a monk. Like I didn't like really have fun or anything. I just ran on the treadmill, hydrated. Like I really didn't do anything. It was basically like quarantine. And I was so nervous of like having fun and having like a disappointing race. And I knew like, hey, if I want to prove these doubters wrong, that I want to prove that my fourth place wasn't a fluke, I need to win this race. And I remember I kind of like I predicted exactly what was going to happen. I'm like, I guarantee you the Canadians, Charles PT, because he told me like he wanted to run quick a few months ago. So I was like, as long as I skip right on Charles PT, and plus like warming up was terrible. What I think most people didn't realize about that race, it was 105. Like I warmed
incredibly
up with
hot.
an ice vest on. Like I had an ice vest on right before I had to go on the track, and I was like scared to take it off. It was like it was so unbearably hot.
Yeah.
But I believed like I warmed up, I hydrated, I did everything I could to get myself as ready as I could. And I just like predicted the race because everyone thought it was going to be slow. No one thought they were going to like break 350. And I'm like, yeah, it's really hot, but we can still run fast. And I ascertained, I predicted that the Canadians were going to go out quick, and I just had to do what I did every single day at working out, and I won it. And to me, that was just like, all right, I proved to all those people that, USA's wasn't a fluke. So that felt really good.
That probably lifted a lot of weight off your shoulders. All right.
Yeah.
And then what is Holtamania to you?
I felt like through my whole life, I kind of was like an underdog, I was like a little different than, some runners. Even throughout like my high school career, I always had like a kind of a bad form, and for whatever reason, I didn't really get like amazingly good until I was like a senior. And I felt like a lot of people always, slept on me. And, I never got like the praise from a lot of the like the big D1 schools. And even when I went to college, and even in high school, I had a younger teammate who was basically just as fast as me. And I remember in high school, everyone thought this kid who was 2 years younger than me, he's the real McCoy on the team. He's going to be like the professional runner and not me. And when I was in college, it was the same thing. There was someone older than me who was like, who was like the big time running. The second he graduated, this guy younger than me. So I for me, Holtamania represent like just like an unbreakable spirit, proving people wrong. And I just felt like throughout my whole career, I always feel like the odds were against me. I'm the underdog. And I just want to show people that like if you have a heart, you can achieve anything. Because I feel like also like what always pissed me off about me was I always felt like people like limited me. I would always tell people that, hey, I think I could run a 355, and people like, nah, like you probably genetic limits maybe 359, and you're not that quick. Your genetic limit is this or that. And I just never like believed in that. And like too many people believe that myth that they have like certain limitations. And it's like, if you just work really hard and you're passionate and you believe in yourself, it's kind of crazy what you're able to accomplish.
For sure. To me, it's just that you're easy to root for, embody what it means to get the most out of yourself. And I think more runners relate to that than, anything else. To me, it's kind of hard to relate some of those runners that just, act like they're superhuman, or, people talk like they're superhuman. I mean, we're all just humans trying to do our best, right? So that's what it means to be. And then, can you tell, the story about how you originally joined Empire Elite? You touched on it earlier. So how did that work?
So it's a really funny story. I kind of like 2020 was a weird year, because of COVID. And, I was like, I didn't know what to do. And honestly, COVID, I believe, saved my career because, I was training on my own. I ran for Garden State, but I did all my training completely by myself. I never trained with anyone, never ran with a single soul. And like, I didn't know what to do really. So I kind of did what I did in high school, which is just crush every single run. And I had like a weird philosophy because I stopped running in like 2018. And I remember when I got back into running, I was like, all right, I'll just run only 5 miles every day. Like I only need to do like, at most 30 miles a week, but I'll run every run at like, sub 6 minute pace. And so in like 2020, I in like 2019, like I was training like an idiot. Like I was just like crushing runs, and then like I would burn out and like restart. And the dumb training managed to work maybe 2 races, and 2 of which I broke 4. But other than that, I was running like 4:19 some races. I was so horribly inconsistent. And so if COVID never happened, they would have had the Olympic trials in 2020. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have made it because I just, the training was like dumb, and I would have given up. I was like, all right, it's time to move on in my life. My running chapter is over. But what happened was COVID happened. It was postponed. And so I was like, well, I told everyone I was going to run until the 2020 trials. So that's what I'm going to do. And, I started my Strava, and I started in 2020. And anyways, I was like updating like my Strava every single day, and people were like, this guy literally runs like 6-7 miles every day at 5:40 pace. Because I was like, I hate strength work. I'll just like crush every run, and then I'll just do one workout a week where I do quarters at sub 60. Like the most simplistic, like archaic running, like as simple as you can get. And anyways, I started getting this comment by Tommy No-Hilly, who's one of my coaches. And he's just like, call me, talk to me now. You need to join Empire Elite. And like, I didn't want to have a coach because I had a coach who one time told me I told him my goals was to make the final at the 2020 Olympic trials. And he's like, you're not good enough. And so I remember once he told me that, like, I was like done with him, and I was completely by myself. And I was like, dude, I'm so sick of these coaches is telling me to retire, stop running, having no belief at me. And, I feel like I was kind of like a laughing stock because I just trained like an idiot. And anyways, I decided to give Tommy No-Hilly. I knew him because he was the coach at one of my rival high schools. And I was like not really into it because I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get another coach who doesn't believe in me like every single other coach I've ever had. And, I'm so glad I joined, and I instantly had, great training partners. I had like Johnny Gregoric, who was a 349 miler, Colby Alexander, who's now ran 333. So it was like, and not only that, it was like less than 40 minutes away from where I lived. I was like, oh my God, this is a miracle. As if God intervened. It's like, hey, Eric, you got a track club right where you live. And I was like, this is such a coincidence. And so it just made me like re-love this sport. Like I kind of like lost the love for it. And it's just like, it was such a coincidence. And, I love the guys, and, I'm such a workhorse. So it works really well for me.
That's the issue too, with pro running, the cost of finding a coach and it working, with your life and all these things, because, post collegiately, there's just more factors, more variables, what you want out of your life, where you want to live, stuff like that, So yeah, that is kind of crazy just how it all worked out. And then, tell me about the team itself. So, how is that working for you? The training, like your teammates, how's that going for you?
Well, like I said, it worked out really well because in 2020, I had Johnny Gregoric, I had Colby Alexander. So I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. I just got to attach myself to these guys. One is a 349 mile, the other is a 333, 1500 guy. So as long as I do whatever they do, I'm going to achieve what I want to achieve. And that's essentially what happened. And it just also made me trust, their program, because I knew it worked for these runners. So I knew it could work for me. And it was very exciting because I knew this was my last ever chance at this sport. I knew if this didn't work, it's never going to work. And I always was like that guy that said, only if I had this or that opportunity, I could achieve the goals I set out for myself. So Empire Elite gave me the opportunity to chase those goals, and it worked out. It was awesome, and it was such a good feeling, and it was awesome because it was the most I enjoyed running ever since high school. And I felt like in college I kind of like grew out of the sport, but like I just like fell in love with it. And I think part of it is just the way the atmosphere is. We don't have that many athletes, but we're all here for a purpose. We're not here because of scholarship. We're here because we enjoy and love the sport, and we want to run fast, and we have passion for the sport. And, we don't have Johnny anymore, and Colby kind of trains in Cleveland. So we have Isaac Updike. He's like a 818 steeplechase runner, and maybe 817. And then we have another 818 by Travis Mahoney. So two sub 820 steeplechase runners there almost at every practice. We got Tommy Nohilly's son, Ian Nohilly. He was a 2-time state champion in high school. We have Ben Allen, who is from Minnesota.
Yeah, he's from Minnesota.
Yeah, he's a recent sub 4. He's ran 340. A lot of talent. We have Luciano Fury, he's ran 146. He was like a 152 guy in college, nothing burger.
Wow.
And he improved like an insane amount. Like his story is also just incredible.
Yeah.
And I think what makes
it's really worked well. I'd say, the whole program, like you're saying, it's not just you, but your team. It looks like a great group to train with for you.
Yeah, no. And what makes it great is like, if you're showing up to practice, like we talk about our goals, and like our coach is like, yeah, I know you can make a world Olympic team. You have the talent. And when you have coaches just believe in you and telling you can do something, and them themselves were sub 4 milers. John Trotman made the Olympics in 92 in Barcelona, and you have another one who was one spot away from making the Olympics in 92 and 96. It just makes it like, so much fun. Like, because that's what made, in my opinion, high school special was, there was like no limit to your potential, and that's what made running fun. And then I felt like when I got to college, I was just like, unfortunately, not many of the kids had that spirit. People just wanted, like, I feel like their goals were very limited, maybe, realistic, but I feel like the team I'm on now, everyone has ambitious goals, and we all want to run incredibly fast. And, we all have a chip on our shoulder. We're an unsponsored club. We hope to be sponsored, and we hope to, do as well as any other club, sponsored or not.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna bring it back for this next question. You probably have never thought of this race in a long time.
Wow.
So often people think success and progress is very linear, and you've already talked about this. So I found your first track race listed on Teefers in college, a 3K, where you ran an 8:52 at the Cornell Triangular. What do you
Yeah.
remember about that race? And then how has your perspective changed since?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack here. So when I was in high school at Carmel, we didn't train like any other high school. I always got annoyed because my senior year, I had some impressive times, but what most people knew is I was very inconsistent and I was very low mileage. Like the way I trained in high school was completely polar opposite. It was like a different sport than the way we train at Binghamton. It was like low mileage, but I had like 4 workouts a week. It was just very bizarre. And when I got to Binghamton, I was like one of the best recruits we've had just in terms of like some of my PRs. Which now it's funny is like nowadays these high school kids, my PRs wouldn't even be
Insane.
impressive. And I remember I just like came in pretty cocky, thought I would be the best runner. And I remember my first freshman cross country season, I didn't even make the top 10 for cross country conferences. Like I was complete garbage. And part of the reason is I thought like the training was just like, I never really did more than, 40 miles a week. And I was like, it was just all workouts in high school. I didn't really do like runs. And, when I started doing like 70-minute runs, like I never did anything like that.
Yeah.
So it was tough. So going into my freshman year, I also had scholarship and a lot of kids resented me for that because it's like, oh, he can't even make the top 10 for for Binghamton. Like he sucks, and people knew I had scholarship. And I remember going into that 3K and it was just so bad. I mean, I tried my hardest and it just like went poorly. And I think, it's just like the transition from high school to college was really, really rough for me. It just like everything about training was just so different. School was hard. I had a terrible diet. I didn't sleep enough. So, I always tell people like, you know, uh, I've always been very inconsistent, and there's some times in my career, people really question if I was even good at running, and um, I do remember that race. I remember getting beat by almost everyone on my Binghamton team. The only good news is the only bright spot is I ended up running 153 and I believe 413 that season. So I kind of turned it around.
Okay, that's good to hear. And then what are the challenges of being, unsponsored in the pro scene of running, which it's just kind of ridiculous. Someone of your times.
Well, for one is like as I'm right now is you got to live with your parents. The other thing is you got to buy your own shoes. You basically have to pay everything out of pocket. Um, it's kind of crazy. Like, I would love to do altitude. I would love to, you not have to worry about buying shoes. It's like kind of everything's a bit old school. When I go to the gym, I have a gym membership, and a lot of times you have to, have a side job, and you work as well. And to be fair, it gets very frustrating because you see so many guys that you believe you're, doing better than, and you see like the amount of resources they get, and you get none of that. And it's kind of tough. It's like being part of Empire. I love Empire, and I wouldn't leave Empire. But it's like, man, if I think I could like maybe walk onto like another track club, and life would be a lot easier, a lot different. But I will admit, you do appreciate it more. It makes you
Yeah.
maybe in ways hungrier, and any opportunities you get allotted to or you get awarded, you very appreciate it.
Yeah. So if anybody's listening right now, loves Eric, just hit him up. Just hit him up. He deserves it. He deserves it more than anybody. All right. So my teammates at WIU and other young athletes are going to watch this. What advice do you have to them to wrap up, this interview portion?
Some good advice is always believe in yourself. Always, have belief, in what you're doing. Because if you don't believe in yourself, if you start to have self-doubt, it's over. And I truly believe this. As long as my coach, the biggest fuel for running is not mileage, it's not talent, it's your intrinsic motivation. What intrinsically motivates you. If you run from that fuel source, you'll have success. That's where your true, raw talent and energy comes from. And that's what motivates me more than anyone else. That's why it's not easy for me to wake up at 5 a.m. to go for a run or do any workout. Is I have a lot of intrinsic motivation. There's a lot that motivates me, and that motivates me more than money and anything else. And I'm very happy. A lot of other people maybe in different places, but I tell everyone, if you want to run fast, find what motivates you intrinsically. And then on top of that, consistency trumps all. A lot of people will crush runs. They'll have a week where they do insane amount of mileage. But if you want to have results, consistency will always win. You can't have one or couple good weeks and then 4 mediocre weeks. Every week is got to be impressive. Every week you got to consistently eat well, sleep well, lift well. Everything's got to be happening well. Like if you want lifting to work, you got to consistently lift. If you want nutrition to work well, you got to consistently eat well. If you want sleep to work well, you got to sleep well. And, it's really hard, especially in college. I never did any of those things as well as I'm doing now. But if you consistently, have good training, you will do well. And I tell everyone, when I was younger, I thought it was about 1 or 2, good weeks, maybe 4 or 5 good workouts that you string together. But everything's got to be impressive week after week after week, and that's what happens to a lot of good runners. I feel like they have some amazing results, but I'm like, man, you can't stop working hard. You got to grind week after week. You got to not stop, because once you stop and you stop with the consistency and you stop with doing everything right, you're not going to, have the results you want. And that's what I think is the toughest thing about this sport, is there is no luck. It's about your will, what you put into the sport, and that's what you're going to output.
For sure.
If you fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And the sport is a prime example of that. And it's very hard because, if you're in a relationship or a job, it's almost like running's kind of in a way has to come first. And, it makes it very difficult. But I always tell people that. I'm like, I don't want to hear your most impressive workout. You need to have impressive, everything's got to be kind of impressive, and you don't have to crush everything. I had a couple of years where I did almost every run at sub 6 minute pace, and I was awful. And now I do runs at 7 minute pace. And it's not about just killing your body. Sometimes, if you have workouts where you feel good and you just find this rhythm, a good form, that's way better than just, killing yourself. So I just think it's about consistency. Self-belief trumps all. You got to have self-belief. But I would say that that's the secret to success, man, is you just got to believe in yourself. You got to believe, you can achieve these goals, and you got to have consistency.
Yeah,
and
that's some awesome advice, man. Yeah. Okay, so that concludes the interview portion. All right, now we have fact or myth. So a segment where I ask Eric Holt, the most reliable source in running, whether he thinks these statements are facts or myths. Okay, Alone is the best television show out there.
I actually like Alone very much. Is it the best? I'd probably say no, but I really do like the show. I do.
What's your
I've been.
favorite then?
Oh my god, see the thing is, it's like music and like anything else. It just changes.
True.
It just changes. There's no best show. It's what you're interested in at the time. And the thing is, like, which is great about the world we live in, it constantly changes. But I do like the show Alone. It's like one show I would definitely not want to be part of. Hell no. I would hate to do that. Yeah. I'd fail miserably. Like, I love eating. I love being warm. I can only tolerate that for a couple hours doing a workout.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, they literally put people like 10 contestants, and they have to survive off of the land, and they don't know how many of the other contestants dropped out, and it's just like the last one standing pretty much.
Yeah, and it's like in like northern Canada where you have like the worst winters, humanly possible. Like it's it's a fun show to watch. It's like because it's like, to me, that's what hell is. It's like, that's just like a situation I'm so glad not to be part of.
Okay. The body and mind are connected. Fact or myth?
Fact. 100%. 100%. If like, one thing is like, if you have negativity, you're going to be negative, and, I think you're not going to feel as good. But if you just have like fake confidence, sometimes if you just believe in yourself, you can just do better than most people think you can. Like, I remember hearing about a study where they I just can't really think of it, but they like faked the results, and they had people like pass a test, and they told them they failed. And then, long story short, like, the people that had like the fake passes ended up doing better than the people that had the false.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. Okay.
So 100%. Like, your mindset, it's unbelievable what a mindset can be. Like, I remember when I first broke 4 minutes, the only reason I really broke 4 was because one of my competitors, saw me run a 4:19 mile a couple weeks ago, and he told me not to get in front of him because he was scared I was going to slow him down. And that motivated me enough. I'm like, all right, well, I don't care how I do, but I'm going to beat this kid. And he ended up running 3:59, and I won the race running 3:58. Point being is, like, if you truly are motivated enough and you get a certain belief in your head, it's unbelievable what you can do.
Okay. Comparison is the thief of joy.
100%. 100%. Are you kidding me? I get so annoyed with people these days. They go on social media, and, I try to, like, I was at this like youth camp, and I'm like trying to inspire some kids, like, oh my God, you're so fast. Like, well, these Newberry Park kids and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, one of them beat me last year as a pro. I didn't go say, oh, wow, I need to quit this sport. I got beat by high schooler. Hell, throughout my career as a college kid or post-collegiate, I got beat by at least 10 high school kids in a mile. It happens. Who cares? Yeah. Some people are really good when they're really young. Don't compare yourself, because if you compare yourself, you're not going to ever want to leave your room, because you're going to think you're so useless and pathetic, man. I mean, every time I go on social media, I'll just see like a 14-year-old who's like a self-made millionaire and like 10 times more successful than me. It just, the second you start comparing, you'll just, you'll just be depressed and feel like you're inferior. It's so stupid. I hate it so much. And it's one of the biggest problems with our society.
Yeah. Okay. New York Knicks over Brooklyn Nets. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I grew up a big Knicks fan. Jeremy Lin, the Lin sensation, was the highlight of my Knicks, career. But it's such oh man, it's just like, I don't believe in New York teams at all. Even in like football, I just don't believe in them at all. I'm like, it's just a farce. None of these teams are gonna like win. So I can't really. It's hard watching the Knicks because I just have to like their management is just terrible and um. But like it's the same thing with the Nets. It's just like it's New York teams. They suck. They're not gonna win.
You're only as good as your last race. Fact or myth?
Fact, 100%. You're only as good as like, honestly, your like last workout. And that's the thing that's so rough about running is you could be like an unbelievable runner one season. And then if you don't put in that sacrifice and hard work again, you're just not going to do well, in like other sports. I get so envious because I'm like, man, these guys like, aren't as serious as us runners. And they're like, oh, well, I just like understand, the routes and stuff. And they just like have success. And I'm like, man, like as a runner, it's just like sometimes you're like, oh God, I got to grind again. I got to mentally push myself so hard again. And no matter how many times you like do a hard tempo or hard workout interval, it never gets easy. And you have to do it because otherwise you're not going to have the success. And so every year you have to mentally callous your mind. And, if you're not like having success with workouts, you're just like not going to have the success in the future. And so, yeah, 100%, what you did 3 years ago doesn't matter. And that's what I tell young kids. I'm like, listen, I'm sure being a great high school phenom sounds awesome, but you know what happens is like I knew a few kids that, were 4 flat milers, sub 4 milers in high school that never panned out. And, you don't want to be a person
It's a lot of
that
pressure.
is not like is doing like maybe okay in college, and then you get people on Let's Run the shit on you and laughing about you. Like that would be miserable. So, and that's the thing about running is we're all human. I don't know. I don't know many people that can run really fast times without, grinding and working really hard for it.
Okay. Last one. Times matter more than wins. Fact or myth? This is a tough one.
I would say myth. And the reason is because when I was like a senior, or even in like throughout like high school and pro, like there's always so many people like I'll see that run like unbelievably fast, but they'll never do well in championship races. And like you could run a 3:42 mile, break the world record in the mile, but if you don't get top 3 at the Olympic trials, like if you're not really, winning championship races, are you truly the best runner? And I think, winning a like, I've talked about it. I've mentioned like I feel like even though like a runner like Matt Sanchez never set a major U.S. record, like he won a gold, and that to me trumps any of Alan Webb's accomplishments. And I just feel like winning championship races do trump all. And obviously, as a runner, you want to do both. Like,
yeah,
you want to have the championship accomplishments, and you also want to have, the record-breaking times.
Yeah. That's why it's so nice, like early in the season to get a good fast race in, and then the rest of the season you don't have to worry about that anymore and just focus on tapering for that, final championship, right? Stuff like that. Okay, so that's all for that segment. And now we've got Rapid Refresh, a segment where I ask my guests too many questions for them to answer in a timely manner. Okay, so, I ask anything and everything. What type of music is your guilty pleasure?
Ooh, honestly, I like
any.
80s music, and my favorite 80s music has to be like Cheap Trick. But like I said, it changes a lot. Sometimes I just like find a new band and then I just like listen to them. But I'm very nostalgic. I love 80s music. I think there's something to do with like the wiring in my brain, like some music that maybe I listened, as a school kid in like elementary school in like the school bus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh man, I really like this music. And it was just like popular music that was playing in like the 2000s.
Yeah, for me, it's
So,
country. I mean, I didn't despise it growing up, but I mean, being out in Macomb, Illinois, I don't know if it did something to me, but so you were born also where Evan Jager grew up.
Yes.
So who is
I was born in the same hospital, and I would have gone to the same high school as him.
Yeah.
I grew up in Algonquin, Illinois.
So who is the king of Algonquin, you or Evan Jager? Who's the king?
Well, he still has me in the 15, and he's a American record holder in the steeple, and he got was it bronze or silver?
Yeah.
Obviously he's way better than me, but I'm right now trying to take the all-time New York mile record, which is 351. I want to run 350 and hopefully break 350. But to me, being an all-time New York record holder in like the mile like means a lot to me. So I want to do that, and I really want to make a world, and hopefully, which would be everything, make an Olympic team. But obviously, Evan Jager is way more accomplishments, a way more accomplished runner for me. Not even close.
Maybe you're both kings. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it okay to wear half tights under split shorts?
No, I don't. If you wear half tights, just wear half tights. Like I don't wear. I retired from wearing short shorts. I only wear like half tights now because it's just like I've gotten too much chafing, and I just think half tights just aesthetically look better anyway. So I'm definitely a half tight guy all the way through, and I don't see that changing.
Okay. Is letsrun.com good for the sport?
That's a great question. So I had some funny articles on Let's Run. Like I finally had like some breakout seasons, and now I'm like officially accused of doing drugs. And it's just like, I wish people could see my life.
It's almost a compliment.
I mean, I do take vitamin gummies. You got me. I think the most dangerous drug I take is like beet juice, but I don't even think that does anything. So,
okay. What was your major in college?
So I majored in English. My goal was to get like an MBA post graduation, but I realized like I didn't get full ride in running, so I had to like pay it off. And my dad works in a psych ward. So immediately after I graduated Binghamton, I did the night shift at a psych ward, and I worked there for some years. And I was told to immediately stop working night shift by my coach because I one time showed up to a practice and I looked really tired. And he's like, "Oh, how much hours did you sleep at last night?" And I was like, "Oh, I worked." And like, "Oh, so how many hours of sleep?" And he's like, "Oh, I didn't sleep. I literally just got back from work." And I remember, like I literally was crazy. Like I took really bad care of my body. But the one thing it did was it got me mentally callous. But my goal was, to go back and get my MBA. But I was like, hey, if I'm good enough at running, maybe a school I can teach at and, actually, get like a master's in business or something.
It seems like you're not really afraid of anything, but what are you afraid of? Do you have any fears?
Ooh, what's funny is I'm afraid, like I don't believe in ghosts, but I'm definitely afraid of ghosts. And I get kind of mad because I post on my, like I do a lot of night runs on this trail. It's called River Run. And freaking like I never even met any of these kids, these New Milford kids, high school kids. And they keep on commenting on my Strava like, "Dude, don't run at night. It's haunted. There's ghosts." And I'm like, whatever. And then now I do night runs, and now I'm scared as crap. I'll hear something, and I think I see a ghost every like 2 seconds, And I'm like, I hate you guys so much because I am absolutely terrified. You don't understand how scared I am running every night because I double or something. And I'm just now like so paranoid that I'm going to see a ghost. And, it's just like, oh no. Like, so I'm definitely scared of like seeing something like paranormal or like, and I don't even like believe in that. It's just like, once it's in your head, you can't like stop but think of it. But, I would say I'm always like the reason like I'm this involved in running is one of my best friends in like at Binghamton joined the military. He's actually now a Navy SEAL, and I was like very heavily like thinking about doing it. And the only reason I stopped was my biggest fear was I kind of always knew I had success. Like my dream, if I could do anything in my life, was be a professional athlete. And I didn't want to quit running knowing that I had a special performance saved up in me. And I always believed I could. And there was always something pulling me back into the sport. And, I truly believe there's something that kept me in the sport because the amount of coincidences that happen and have, contributed to success are unbelievable. And it's like, I don't like people to know it's not just me. I've had unbelievable coaches, mentors, and, one of my high school friends, Jacob Sweet, and another college friend, Andrew Sweeney, they told me, please don't give up post college, keep on going. I think something special can happen. You can run so much faster. And it was hard for me to move on in my life post college, knowing that I potentially, had a lot more things to do in running. And, it was really hard for me. I had like a period of my life where I'm like, man, maybe I should have, done a different sport, because I remember going to like family meetings and, people, like listening to like other people talk about like playing D3 football or some other sport. And, I felt like I was always heavily stigmatized being a runner,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you must not be coordinated. You must not be strong. You're not a good athlete. And, I'm like, if I'm going to do running, I want to prove people that I am a good athlete and I can do something in this sport.
And you can dunk, I heard.
I can dunk and I can bench 215. Not right now, but when I was lifting a lot.
Yeah.
And for me, I did a lot of those stuff to like prove people that I'm more than just a runner. And now I don't do that kind of stuff, because I remember I did hurt myself because I was squatting 315. Bench 225. I was squatting 315 and I pulled my back. And honestly, I was just like kind of like ego lifting. I was like lifting just to like prove a point. And I feel like I'm glad and happy, because I used to be in like boxing and a lot of that stuff. But I feel like now with Empire Elite, I'm content in just being a runner.
Yeah.
And I've only been doing this for the last year, where, I felt like in college and high school, my heart wasn't set on running. Like in college, I did a lot of boxing. I was sparring a lot of like kids on the track team that thought they could beat me up. And I was like, oh, I can beat you up. And they're like, oh, you're just a weak distance runner. And I just always like felt like I had to do another sport, because I felt like I was a bit insecure with my running, because a lot of my family members would tell me, I wasn't a good athlete and you're just a runner. And like, they would throw me something. It's like, oh, can you even catch this? And, at a point I was like, you know what? Screw them. They can think whatever they want, but I'm also not only going to prove, that I'm not like, I don't need to prove that I can do other sports other than running, but I am going to prove the sport I do of running, I'm pretty good at.
And I think you
once
have.
I had the inspiration, it motivated me. And now it's just like, I don't need to do all these other things. Like I don't need to, show off, and people are more impressed. Like no one cares about like the other things I do. And it's tough, and the one thing is like what young people don't realize, it's very hard being good at many things. Like for running, you kind of have to be falling on in this sport. Otherwise it's just like you're not going to have the results you want.
Okay. And then you're a fan of anime. So what's your favorite?
How do you know that?
I do my research, man.
Oh my God. I keep that locked up. So it's funny because I don't like talking about it because I get stigmatized. But when I was in college, I watched some anime, and you're pretty nutty. But you know what's funny is I didn't want to say it. I don't want to sound like a weirdo. But I remember I would listen to like some anime openings to like hype me up. But I never mention it because like, I get like criticized. And I remember in college, like I knew so many of my teammates, like we would like be doing homework, and they would like open my door and like, oh, I got to show you all these shows. To be fair, I haven't been watching that much of it, but a lot of that stuff definitely, kind of hyped me up. But it's kind of funny. I don't really like mention a lot of that, but I definitely, watch a good amount of anime in my time.
Okay. If you could get rid of any state, what would it be and why? This is a question I ask a lot of people.
Oh man.
You get rid of any state, just wipe it off.
It's funny. Right now I live in Connecticut, and I always hated Connecticut. And in ways I still do, because they have the worst freaking drivers. I hate, like, first of all, I have so many speeding tickets. I have a court date next week to go to. And freaking for some odd reason in New York, I'm the fastest driver. In Connecticut, I'm like on all these side roads, and these trucks are ramming my ass. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, this is unbelievable. You guys are nuts. In on highways, I'm always the slowest driver. And, I kind of grown a little bit to Connecticut. I hated I hated this state, but I actually tried New Haven style pizza, and I'm gonna admit, like, New Haven style pizza is the best style pizza I've ever had. And but honestly, it's always funny. I always make fun of states. I guess it's going to be New Jersey. I'm sure there's good parts of New Jersey, but like northern New Jersey, like Trenton and Newark, they're just like kind of like really pretty crappy. And every time I have to drive there, they just like have like a bunch of factories with smog and a bunch of traffic. And I have a few guys on my team that are from New Jersey, so I always make fun of them.
Yeah. For me, it's got to be Iowa, just because my roommate's from there, and I got to rub him the wrong way. He'll listen. So, And then, what would you want your last meal to be? What would be your favorite meal?
Ooh, what's funny is, I was at my sister's place, and I just talked about this, but it was like a special occasion, and they got authentic like New Haven style pizza. And I mean, that was probably some of the best food I've ever had. Like, I mean, it's like it's very thin crust pizza. It was burnt. The cheese and sauce is just perfect. And I've told everyone, like, New York style pizza is better than Chicago. No pizza compares. But I'm not gonna lie. Hey, people in New Haven, like people from Connecticut, your New Haven style pizza, not only is it the best pizza in the world, it's honestly, I think I might, but it's got to be from this pizzeria in New Haven. It's like, I forget what it's called, but it's like
the
best pizza I've had.
Okay, and then just to wrap up everything, so now we'll start to conclude the episode. Who are your biggest supporters, and then just shout them out, just in life, in running.
And in high school, it's got to be one of my high school friends, teammates, and mentor, Jacob Sweet. The coach for Lamar University in Texas, Andrew Sweeney. Without these two guys, I definitely would not be running. Obviously, my parents, recently they truly have seen my potential, and now, they've been telling me, you got to get a job. What are you doing? You ruin your life. But now they're like, hey, I think you can actually make the Olympics. Like, this is unbelievable. And, you're only young once. So they're definitely, more committed. Obviously my coaches, Tom Nohilly and John Trotman, one thing is they don't get nearly enough credit. They're not getting paid literally anything. And they're there every single practice, not just one of them, both of them 3 times a week, and they go to every meet. And they're losing money from doing this, and they do it because of the passion they have for the sport. It's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
All my teammates at Empire, we all make fun of each other, but they're just awesome. I love the fact that they're as committed as we are, and we share a kinship, and that is to run as fast as humanly possible. And honestly, it's, when I graduated college, I was depressed and sad. I remember I applied. I wanted to be like a teacher of America job, and I wanted it so badly, and I got like denied. And, I was like set on joining the military. I was set on, moving on in my life. And just like, I thought I was done with running. I really did. And, always when I was a kid, I wanted to be a professional athlete. I wanted to do something and be world elite at it. And, joining Empire gave me hope, and it's just been so fun. And I know I'll enjoy being part of this club for the rest of my life. And, I hope to do more than what I did last year. I really do believe I can make a world team. I believe I will get sponsored. And, I want to continue this momentum. And I wouldn't have been able to do this. And I'm being honest, I wouldn't have been able to do this without, Jacob Sweet, Andrew Sweeney, my coaches, all my teammates at Empire, these people. Like, I remember, even when I trained by myself, like Jacob Sweet would just like come to all my workouts, and they just were like so helpful. And, most people were telling me to like move on in my life, but those people, for some reason saw my potential before I did. And, it's wonderful. It's such a great feeling. And I really want to try my best to, help give back and help inspire other people.
Awesome. I think you're doing a good job of all that. Okay. So if you made it this far, please leave a like. How can they follow you on social media?
I have my Instagram is eHolt the Bull, or Eric Holt. You can follow my Twitter, which is also, I believe, eHolt the Bull. And, you can follow my Strava and see all my runs. I post every day, Eric Holt. And, if you just like give me a follow, and, I read almost all the messages and comments, and I love the support, and I just want to say I love the support I get from my community. Like, it's been great to see all these new Milford kids comment, even though they made me definitely scared to run on this road, especially at night, which is funny because I'm doing a double tonight. So I'm going to get a flashlight, and I'm going to run like 3-4 miles really easy. And the only thing I'm going to be thinking about are ghosts, thanks to these kids.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So if you've made it this far, please leave a like, review if you're listening on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, something like that. Follow along for more running related content at Running Refresh every Sunday at noon Central Time. You got anything else for me, Eric, before we end the episode?
No. Thank you for letting me on this podcast.
Of course.
It's been great. I don't know how you knew some of the stuff you knew. I don't remember telling anyone, but it's been great.
Thank you. It's been awesome.